So this came out late last night. Trey Wingo says, per sources, longtime, obviously, ESPN personality, been in the business a long time. He says, per sources, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets had conversations today. While nothing is imminent, Rodgers is open to the idea of going to New York. Now, it's interesting because there was also a report that came out earlier in the day from Mike Silver, who's always credible, all right? Never gets stuff wrong.
Yeah, I love going at Mike Silver.
What are you talking about?
Golly.
I mean, listen.
He's been wrong from time to time.
From time to time.
Time to time. But, this report from Mike Silver came out that the Packers, the days of them, just going ahead and acquiescing to Aaron Rodgers and just, begging him to come back and return on his terms, those days are over. And there's a feeling that Rodgers sort of checked out after he signed that big contract he did last year. So the fact that you're getting one report and then now you've got the other one that Rodgers would be open to going somewhere, it just feels like we're still in this weird little battle where maybe one side is playing the media and then the other side's playing the media back and forth. Or maybe none of them are in the inner circle and this is all a bunch of crap. That's where we could be at when it comes to Aaron Rodgers.
The inner circle.
Yeah. It's all that inner circle.
That should be a movie.
How much of it is, do you think, drawing or drumming up interest? And not that he, as a player, needs it, but maybe considering where he's at in his career. Because if you're buying into him, you're buying into what could be, I don't know, a year more of football, 2, maybe 3. It's hard to get a sense. I mean, the thing about him this past offseason, and really the past couple of off seasons, is I actually think it's hurt him at this point because he's been so open and so transparent and maybe even honest to a fault that it's provided a window into his decision-making process and his personal life and everything else, which is, it's odd to me only because he was so private for so long. I mean, outside of rumors of who he's dating, you really didn't hear much about anything, outside of just seeing him in football. And at some point, there was a switch that hit and it changed. And now you hear about all this stuff, that he needs to go away for 4 days in a hut to be able to make that decision. I mean, what happened with just saying, hey, I need to take some time? People don't need to know where you're going or what you're doing or if you're taking any drugs. I mean, the whole thing is a bit bizarre. And so I wonder if there's a sense of teams who they might be interested, but they're a little bit worried about every single offseason having to deal with a soap opera or having to deal with a bunch of curveballs thrown your way where he might be contemplating retirement and life and everything else. I mean, LaVar, you know how the NFL works. Like, they like simple. They don't like complicated. And the reality is life is complicated for, I think, everyone out there. But the NFL works in this world of, like, simplicity where they're like, well, if you become too much of an issue, we'll move on from you. Now, talent always will supersede that. But once the talent becomes equated to the drama that you bring, that's where we cut bait. And we're just like, let's move on to someone else. And we'll find someone who's less drama. They might, have maybe less talent, but they're close, and they've got some upside to them as well. So I do wonder if some of this is to draw up some interest for teams potentially who could be a trade partner with the Packers to facilitate something.
That's what makes it the most complicated piece of this, is that you have to deal with that contract. And I think that was very well put to talk about the simplicity of football. What do they tell us, Brady? When we're walking onto the field, some people have it set at different places, right? There's different locations for it. But when you cross this threshold, what do we say? Leave all that other S where you left it. Like, whatever's happening in the real world, out there in the world, once you cross the white lines, it's like these like metaphorical or these places that are strategically placed. You cross these lines, you put your helmet on, or you're ready to practice. It is all about football. You do not think about anything else. That is a part of what we do. That's like when I was in college. They have it even in college. You come out of the doors to go onto the practice field. They had these white lines before you even got to the sideline white lines, the field white lines. And once you cross that threshold, nothing else matters. And if that's the thought process of how football is handled and the culture of it is handled, which is much like military, right? The difference between you making it back and not making it back is your attention to detail and your focus to what your mission is. That's a lot like how people approach, or the culture of football is approached. And Aaron Rodgers violated that, whether he knew it or not. It was masterfully played in the moment when he said what he said about Green Bay, and nobody comes to Green Bay except to come to play with Aaron Rodgers, and all the things that he laid out there as his reasons why they needed to respect Aaron Rodgers more. Masterfully played in that market and in that moment. But, man, when you think about maybe what the implications of that would have been if he found himself in the situation that he's in now, where you're looking to go somewhere else, it's one thing if I gotta take this guy that is contemplating retirement, has thrown the GM and the decision makers under the bus at the team he's currently on, and we can pay him something where we can get from underneath that contract that we give him. Like, okay, we give him the contract we want. It's incentive laden, da-da-da. If we don't like it, we get rid of him. You have to absorb another contract. You have to be a trade partner and take on the contract that Green Bay did. And I think that that's where it's going to make this very, very complicated because of all of the complexities that go into what Aaron Rodgers has been. All these things you're talking about right now, Q, in terms of all the exposure to the things that he's doing and why he's doing it, the content creating of what Aaron Rodgers' life is outside of football. It creates a tremendous thought process of, is it worth it? Is his talent that you're going to bring for the amount of time that you're going to bring it to our team and inside our locker room, is it worth it to deal with Aaron Rodgers for the amount of time and the amount of money? And I don't know that it adds up, to be honest. I don't know that it adds up.
If you look at how the Favre departure from Green Bay went, they got tired of just the waffling back and forth. Do you want to play or not? With Rodgers, it's
a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to play? And also, do I want to crawl underground and do drugs? And do I want to go play somewhere else? And do I like the organization I'm playing for? And let me rattle off all my stats and all my, I think it's fascinating to watch because it's almost like he's trying to discover himself in the middle of an NFL team trying to figure out who's going to be their quarterback. But I've always wondered, are people in Green Bay, as much as they love Rodgers, as much as they love everything he's done for them, it does feel, and look, we're on the game in Green Bay right now in Wisconsin, and they're listening. I wonder if that fan base is at a point where they're like, dude, enough. Like, can we just see what we got in Jordan Love, and let's go our separate ways. You want to go do your thing, and we'll go do ours, and let's move on.
I think one thing that made Brett Favre so beloved, I mean, outside of the fact that he's a Hall of Fame player, a unique talent, he played the game with that mentality of just a gunslinger, right? He could throw 4 picks, and he throws a 5th one, and he comes off the field looking at LaVar going, hey, man, just give me the ball back again, right? And and you might be sitting there as a defender going, bro, what are you talking about? We've already gotten you the ball back 4 times. You keep throwing picks. But, he just had this, fun-loving way of playing the game that I think it was infectious and just trying to make throws that few people could make. But to me, what made him so beloved was how relatable he was. When you think about some of the, things he went through as a person off the field, and he would kind of open up a little bit about that and talk about that. The fact that dude loved, hunting and fishing and everything else, it seemed to resonate with many of the people there in Green Bay. Some of the stuff we've been talking about in regards to Aaron and kind of his journey of figuring out if he wants to play and where he wants to play, if he wants to play, how he envisions all that, it's hard for people to understand, right? Again, and I think the more details you provide, it almost makes it seem less relatable. And maybe ultimately he doesn't care about that, or he feels like he's trying to educate people on maybe a better way. Maybe more people should be doing that in his mind. But the reality is, it does, to your point, Jonas, I think it starts to wear thin on fans. Because fans like things to be simple, too, with sports. They like to turn off the rest of the world and whatever else is going on, turn on the game, and just watch sports and not have to worry about the other complexities going on in their life, or even the players, for that matter. And I think that's something that's, as we've gone in this realm of like social media and podcasts and just having access to even more and more content from athletes, I think in some ways it's helped, in others it's hurt.
Again, I think that in this scenario with Aaron Rodgers, I do not think that the squeeze, I just don't think it's worth what you're going to have to do in order to get it. I just have the biggest issue here is, are you motivated? Are you committed? And for how long? And who are you going to be? Because I'll tell you right now, Aaron Rodgers has you can say Aaron Rodgers has a very cool, calm, collected way of approaching things. The RELAX, just relax. And you can listen to the way he spoke when he came out of the Hobbit hole and the things he said when he came out of there. Everything, when he talked to Aubrey, everything is like very right here. And it's just like that. And to some people, it's a subdued, calm, cool, collected person. To others, I'm looking at it like, I'm not going to be talked to in a condescending way. I am not going to have a person come in here and challenge my authority over what it is that I'm doing. And you want to know who might be one of the worst, I would assume, at not wanting anyone to touch his authority and how he does things and how he feels about things? The head coach of the New York Jets. Pay attention to his personality traits when he was talking about Zach Wilson and the whole scenarios that were playing out during the course of this year. Robert Saleh does not come across to me as the type of person that would be wanting to spend his time trying to figure out, is this condescending? Is this challenging my authority and my coach's authority? Is it creating a fracture between us and our players? Do we have the potential of losing our locker room based off of this? He does not strike me as the type of person that's going to take that chance. And so now you got to measure and weigh. Are we bringing in a guy that is going to give us the value that we're looking for to take us to another level and where we're trying to go, considering that we're about to take a step away from a draft pick that we missed on? Or do you say to yourself, you know what, like, we're not willing to take that risk? And I think, to me, that's going to be the hardest decision that any of these teams make, let alone the Jets. That's going to be a hard decision for any team to make in dealing with the Aaron Rodgers situation, because he commands a level of respect that's connected to the contract that the team is going to take over.
I mean, obviously we're going to talk about Derek Carr at some point, but it's looking like the Jets don't have a whole lot of options. Like what else is out there for them? I mean, you roll back Zach Wilson and just say, hey, just stay away from women over the age of 50 and everything's going to be fine. Did you study a book long enough? Is it going to be Mike White? The Jets feel like they're up against it, and there's not really a whole lot of other options out there.
It is ironic that, if you ask Jets fans right now, last year before the season, you said anything critical of Zach Wilson, you'd hear from it from the Jets fans.
Oh, of course.
Now the idea or thought of Zach Wilson being who they have to turn to this season probably is going to cause them to either throw up or just be in a complete state of disarray.
Oh, man.
It is interesting how that 180 happened over the course of a year.